Okay, so factoring quadratics using the AC method. So the AC method is a strategy that you use to factor trinomials when you have three terms. Think of the AC method as a way of undoing the FOIL or the box method. That's exactly what we're doing. We're undoing the FOIL or the box. So we're going to factor quadratics in the form A. They're going to look like this. We're factoring quadratics that look like this. AX squared plus BX plus C. That's what our trinomials look like. That's what we're going to factor, okay? So we're going to take things that look like that and change them. All of the ones that we factor today are going to have A equals 1. Maybe that's not true. Nope, that's not true. Well, I'm not even going to write that. I'm just going to get rid of that, okay? So the first step, we always want to look for a GCF. If you don't take out a GCF at the beginning, you're going to end up having a term that carries over to your factor. Like one of your factors, everything will be divisible by 2 or 3. So you always want to look for a GCF. Okay. The second thing is you want to make sure that the list of all the factors, that you list all the factors and their sums. We call those factor pairs. We're going to split the middle term. Okay, we're going to split the middle term so that it's, you guys don't have this. So step number 2, find the pairs of factors that adds to B. They're going to add to B. You're going to split the middle term into factors that add to B, and then you factor by grouping. So let me just tell you what that looks like. When you think of AX squared plus BX plus C, so I'm going to give you an example. X squared plus 2x minus, I'm going to actually put plus, no, I'm going to do minus. I'm going to do minus 8. Minus 8. Okay. So when I think of the AC method, when we're talking about the AC method, the value of A is 1. I just wrote it there, okay? So I have to take the value of A, which is 1, times the value of C, which is negative 8. So I'm looking for a product of negative 8 that has a sum, 2 terms that sum up to B, which is positive 2. So let's just first off list all the factors of 8. So let's see, 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Those are the only factors of 8, right? So if I want to have a negative product with a positive sum, think of what I'm saying. If I want my product to be negative, but when I add those two numbers together, I want the sum to be positive, which number in the product has to be negative? The larger one or the smaller one? The smaller one needs to be negative. So that way when I take negative 1 plus 8, I get a positive 7. Or negative 2 plus 4 gives me a positive 2. So the two factors that I'm making negative would be the 1, and negative 1 times 8 does in fact give me negative 8, but when I add them together, I get a positive 7. Is that what I'm looking for the value of B? No. So I got to try again. Let's see. Negative 2 times 4, well, that does give me a negative 8. And when I add those together, negative 2 plus 4 is 2. This is what I'm looking for. That means these are my two factors. My factors are actually x minus 2 and x plus 4. Okay. All right. So I'm going to slide up. And we're going to look at the first one has a value for A of 1. The second one has a value of A being 2. So it says we're looking for the factors of 20 because A times C, that's where it gets that. I want you to know where that number is coming from. It's coming from the product A times C. So let's list all the numbers that we can multiply together to get 20. I'll start you off. 1 times 20. What else? 2 times 10. Okay, what else? 4 times. Okay. Is there anything else? Yep, that's it, right? We've met them all. Okay. So what is the sum we're looking for? The sum is the B value. So what is the sum that we're trying to find? 9. B is 9. Do you guys see that? B is 9 right here. I'll make it bigger. Does everyone see that B is 9 in that quadratic? Okay, or that trinomial? So let's just take 1 plus 20. What is 1 plus 20?
21.
It's 21. Okay. What is 2 plus 10? What's 4 plus 5? So that means that these two numbers are the factors that I'm using. Okay. These two numbers are the factors that I'm using. When A equals 1, that's your leading coefficient. When A equals 1, the factors you choose are, does anyone remember what I used to say all the time? Are the factors you use. Do you guys not remember that rhyme? The factors you choose are the factors you use. So A equals 1. Do you guys see that? A is 1, right? That's my leading coefficient. The two factors that we've chosen are positive 4 and positive 5. Well, those are going to be my factors, x plus 4 and x plus 5. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work like that when A is not 1. It only works when A is 1. That's only true when A is 1. So it's going to be good for us to do an example where A is not 1. Okay, so I'm going to slide. Say that again. Okay. So are you guys ready for me to go to the next one? Can I move over? Not yet. What are you writing down? You're writing down my little rhyme? Did you get it all? Okay. All right. So the factors come from A times C. So the reason we're looking for factors of 6 is because 2 times 3 is 6. We also need to have them add up to what? What is the value of B? 5. Okay, let's see. Factors of 6. 1 times 6. What's another factor of 6? 2 times 3. Okay. So 1 times 6, when I add it together, 1 plus 6 is 7, but 2 plus 3 is 5. So the factors that we're using are going to be 2 and 3. Okay. So now we're going to take these two numbers. Think about step number 2. You're going to take the two numbers that you use to add up to B and you're going to split the middle. So we're going to rewrite our quadratic or our trinomial. Instead of writing it as 2x squared plus 5x plus 3, I'm going to rewrite this so it has 4 terms so I can group it together. So I'm going to rewrite it as 2x squared plus 2x plus 3x, and my last term is plus 3. So all I did was replace this positive 5x with what? Yeah, I just replaced it with the two factors that we chose. Isn't 2x plus 3x equal to 5x? So all I did was just change the way that I wrote the problem. Because if I were to go back and combine like terms, I'd still get the 5x. Why do I need 4 terms? So I can factor by grouping. So when you look at that first example, 2x squared plus 2x, what is something that I can take out of that? Yeah, I can pull a 2x out of here. So when I divide that first term by 2x, I'm pulling my 2x out. Let's see, 2x squared divided by 2x leaves me with an x. And 2x divided by 2x leaves me with a 1. Don't put a 0. Don't think that they just cancel out to become nothing. They equal 1, okay? Now let's look at our second grouping. What can I take out of both of those? A 3, and it's a positive 3. So I write plus 3 at the bottom. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's see. When I take out that 3x divided by 3 is x, and 3 divided by 3 is a positive 1. Do I have the repeated term, the copycat? Yeah, what is it? Yeah, I took an x plus 1 out of both pieces. So basically that means you took an x plus 1 out of the whole problem. What do you have left? It's the stuff outside the parentheses. 2x plus 3. That is how you factor that, by grouping. 2x plus 3. Okay? Flip it over. We're going to do it again. So now we're going to do page 6. So I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom really fast and write page. Is this really page 6? Let me think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, page 6. Okay, I just thought I was maybe being crazy. Okay, page 6. So I'm going to go back up here. So let's see. What can we do for example A? So what product am I looking for? Do you guys remember doing it like, how many of you guys saw it like this as an X? You put the product in the top and the sum in the bottom. So what product are we looking for? What is A times C? Negative 63. And what is the sum? What is B? 2. Okay. So this only works if you really know what factors you're using. So grab your calculator, take negative 63 divided by X. Put that into your Y equals. So Y equals, I got to clear out all my exponential functions there. So I'm going to do Y equals negative, you make sure you put a negative and not a minus sign, sorry. Negative 63 divided by X and go to your graph. Okay. So not your graph, sorry, second graph. So what are some factors that divide 63 nicely? Well, I see that when X is 3, I get negative 21. Yeah. What else? 7 gives me negative 9 and positive 9 gives me negative 7. So positive 9 gives me a factor. Positive 9 and negative 7, when I add them together, give me a sum of positive 7, negative 9 give me a negative 2. What's positive 7 and negative 9 when I add them together? So scroll down some more. Scroll down past the positive 7. Do you see it? Okay. So the two factors that I'm using are X plus 9 and X minus 7. X plus 9 and X minus 7. Since A is 1, since our leading coefficient is 1, Colt, you're not going to learn from this. You're sleeping. Pick your head up. Since A is 1, the factors that you use are the factors that you choose. I'll do the next one with like the T chart instead of the X and see how we do. Okay. So I'm going to slide up because some of you guys aren't writing as we're working on it. You're just kind of zoned out. So tell me about this one. What am I looking for on the product side? Oh my gosh. What am I looking for on the product? And what am I looking for on the sum? Product, A times C, for example, B. What am I looking for? 8, yes. Okay. What about the sum? What's the value of B? 6. Okay. So let's list all the factors of 8. 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Okay. 1 plus 8 is 7. 2 plus 4 is 6. So the two factors that I'm going to use are 2 and 4. 2 times 4. Andres, open your eyes. So that gives me X plus 4 times X plus 2. Okay. So those first two examples, A is 1. Those first two examples, the value of A is 1. So it's just easy to factor it like that, right? You don't have to do any grouping. This next example, example C, A does not equal 1. Looks like A equals 4. So let's see. Let's fill out our little chart. Times plus. A times C, 4 times 25 is what? 100. So I'm looking for a product of 100. And what is the sum? Negative 20. Okay. So in your calculator, I want you to do 100 divided by X. Y equals 100 divided by X. Y equals 100 divided by X. I have a question. What is the only way to get a What is the only way to get a positive product and a negative sum?
Here's what I found.
A negative times a negative. She's so smart. Yes, good job. A negative times a negative. So that means when you do 100 divided by x, scroll up to the negatives. Like, does that make sense when you look at your table? So go to your y equals. You're going to do 100 divided by x. And then I want you to, when you look at your table, scroll up to where your negatives are. You're looking at your negatives. Okay. What do you get, Zach? Yeah, negative 10 times negative 10 equals a positive 100. And when I add them together, I get a negative 20. So this one has to be factored by grouping. This one has to be factored by grouping because a doesn't equal 1. So I have the 4x squared. But instead of writing negative 20x, I'm rewriting this as negative 10x minus 10x plus 25. Now I have 4 terms that I can group together. Okay, first grouping. What can I take out of the first? I can take out a 2x. 2x. So when I pull out a 2x, let's see. 4x squared divided by 2x is 2x. And negative 10x divided by 2x is negative 5. God bless you. What about the next one? What can I take out of this next grouping? I don't ever want my leading. If I take out a positive 5, I'm going to have a negative 2x. Yeah, when your first term is negative, you want to take out a negative. So let's take out a negative 5. So I'm taking out a negative 5. Negative 10x divided by negative 5 is a positive 2x. And a positive 25 divided by a negative 5 is a negative 5. Do we have our copycat term? Yeah, what is it? Yeah, 2x minus 5. So these two get pulled out as 1, right? Because I had to take it out of both parts. 2x minus 5. What do you have left over? What's left over outside the parenthesis? 2x minus 5. Is there a better way to write this since I'm multiplying the same thing times itself? 2x minus 5, the quantity squared. Absolutely. 2x minus 5, the quantity squared. I'm going to go up to example D. I'm going to go up to example D. Are we ready? Okay, I want you guys to pick your heads up. Get your heads off your desks, everybody. Okay. Example D. Is there a GCF? What is it? Yeah, I can take a 4 out first. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take a 4 out and rewrite this as x squared minus 4x plus 3. So when I think of my times plus chart, right, my product and my sum, let's see, what two things am I going to multiply together as a product? Well, 1 times 3 is 3. So I'm looking for a product of 3 that adds up to negative 4. If I have a positive product and a negative sum, that means both my terms have to be what, Zach? Negative. Negative 3 times negative 1. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Negative 3 plus negative 1 is negative 4. So do you guys see that your leading coefficient is now 1? So that just means you put the 4 out front, and the two factors that you choose are what you use. X minus 3 times x minus 1. Just don't forget about that 4 you pulled out at the beginning, okay? It's still part of the problem. I'm going to keep going. What about example E? What can I pull for example E? Nothing. So let's do our times plus chart. A times C. What's 7 times 4? 28. So I'm looking for a product of 28 that adds up to a sum of what? 29. What two numbers can I multiply together to get 28 that when I add them, I get 29? 28 and 1. So factor by grouping, 7x squared plus 28x plus 1x plus 4. Again, all I'm doing is getting rid of the middle term, 29x, and rewriting it as two other terms that would combine to that, but I need to have 4 terms, right? If I'm going to factor by grouping, I have to have 4 terms. Okay. So what can I take out of the first grouping? 7x. When I take out my 7x, I'm left with x plus 4. What can I take out of my second grouping? A 1, and it's a positive 1. X plus 4. So let's see my copycat, x plus 4. What's left over? 7x plus 1. Okay, let's do the next one. F. What's the leading coefficient? What's the value of A? A is 1. That means that the factors that I choose are going to be the factors that I use. That's really nice. 1 times negative 56 is negative 56. And the value of B is negative 1. So you could put negative 56 divided by x in your calculator to figure out the factors. The larger number needs to be negative. The larger number needs to be negative. What two numbers can you multiply together to get 56? Make one of them negative. Yeah, negative 8 and positive 7. Negative 8 and positive 7. Since my leading coefficient is 1, this just becomes p minus 8 times p plus 7. We like it when the leading coefficient is 1. That's our favorite. What about example G? Take out a what? A 4. Whoops, hang on a second. We're going to take out a GCF of 4. So I'm going to write it right here. Example G. 4x squared plus 8x plus 4. So when I divide everything by 4, I get 4 parentheses x squared plus 2x plus 1. So what is my product that I'm looking for? Well, 1 times 1 is 1. And what is the sum that I'm looking for? 2. What can I multiply together to get 1 that when I add it, I get 2? Yeah, 1 times 1. See, your leading coefficient is, what's the value of A? It's 1. It's 1. So the factors that I choose are the factors that I use. X plus 1 times x plus 1. Is there a better way to write that? What's going to get squared? Yeah, we're only going to write 1 of the x plus 1s, 4 times the quantity of x plus 1, the quantity squared. Yeah, that's the better way to write that. Okay, that's the better way. That big box down there, the zero product property, it says if the product of two factors is 0, then at least one of them is equal to 0. I started the lesson like that, right? Because that's how we had to solve those. So if the product of two factors is 0, that's what's going to go here, a big old 0, then at least one of them has to be 0. Flip it over. So this should be page number 7. Page 7. Page 7 at the bottom. Okay. So let's see. So when we want to solve a quadratic, the only difference between solving is that we set our equation equal to 0. Right? Do you guys see that? We set it equal to 0 because really a quadratic is y equals, right? Really we write y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. But we know that if we want to solve it, the graph crosses the x-axis when y equals what? I cross the x-axis when y equals, I cross the x-axis. Listen to what I'm asking you. Yeah, I cross the x-axis when y equals what? 0. So that's why we set it equal to 0. I just replaced my y with a 0. That's why that works, okay? So we're just going to factor this as normal. So let's see, times and plus. Times and plus. So what two numbers am I multiplying together? Let's see, 1 times 12. I'm looking for a product of 12 that adds up to a -7. So if I have a positive product and a negative sum, that means both my factors are going to be negative. Factors of 12. Let's see. 2 times 6. Well, when I add those together, I get -8. That's close. What about -3 and -4? When I add those together, I get what? So these are the factors that I'm using. Since my leading coefficient is 1, that means that my factors are x minus 3 times x minus 4 equals 0. So now we're going to actually not have a factor as an answer. Instead, we're just going to have an x equals something. So if x minus 3 is my factor, if x minus 3 is the factor, what is the solution? Yeah, x equals +3 because x minus 3 equals 0, and you add a 3 to both sides. I don't want you guys to have to do this step that I'm doing in green. I want you to just look at them and know that if you have a negative factor, the root or the solution is positive. If you have a negative factor, the root or the solution is positive. I don't want you to have to write out x minus 4 equals 0, add 4 to both sides. I just want you to know that rule, okay? So that saves a bunch of time. Saves a bunch of time, okay? Let's look at example B. Let's look at example B. I can't solve that until I do what? I have to make that whole equation equal 0. So I need to take my 5b and move it to the other side, and I need to take my +14 and move that to the other side. What's that going to look like? How do I move something across the equal sign? Yeah, you do the opposite. So I'm going to subtract 5b from both sides and subtract 14. Subtract 5b and subtract 14. I want you to know that typically I don't write that. I just move them, okay? So this becomes v squared minus 5v minus 14 equals 0. Typically, I don't show that algebraically. I feel like we should just know to move those over, okay? So let's look at our times plus. What's our product going to be and what's our sum got to be? Well, what's A times C? What's the value of A? It's -14, yes. 1 times -14 is -14. What is my sum? What is the value of B? Okay. So let's see. Factors. 7 times 2 and 1 times 14. Since the sum is negative, that means that the larger term, the larger number has to be negative. +1 and -14 give me a -13. +2 and -7 give me a -5. So this is what I'm using. I'm using the factors -7 and +2. So that gives me v minus 7 times v plus 2. And since the factor v minus 7 is negative, what is the solution or the root? +7. And since I have a factor v plus 2, the root or the solution is -2. They're opposites each other. They're opposites each other. Okay. We're going to skip C and D because I'm going to post them. I'm going to do E with you. Slide it over and let's do E. Okay. What do I have to do to solve this? I have to subtract 2. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cancel that out. So that's 2x squared plus 4x. A negative 28 and a negative 2 gives me a negative 30 equals 0. God bless you. Does anybody see something that I can take from everything? A 2. I can divide everything by a 2. Everything on both sides, right? So the cool thing about that is that gives me x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals, well, 0 divided by 2 is still 0. So let's look at the product and the sum. My first term, my leading coefficient, A, is 1. And my last term, C, is negative 15. 1 times negative 15 is negative 15, and B is 2. What 2 numbers can you multiply together to get 15 that have a difference of 2? Positive 5 and negative 3. So 2 stays out front, but that becomes x plus 5 times x minus 3 equals 0. So are my factors positive or negative or a mixture of both? It's a mixture of both. So that means I'm going to have one positive root and one negative root. So 2 equals 0. Is that true? Like, what do we do with this 2 and this, like this 2 out front? Does it become any part of our solution? No, it doesn't. It just goes away. So my 2 solutions are x plus 5 or x minus 3. If x plus 5 is a factor, the solution is, what's the opposite of a positive 5? Okay. If x minus 3 is a factor, what's the opposite of minus 3? Positive 3. What about f? What are we going to do to solve that one? I had to add 20 to both sides. Add 20 to both sides. So that's going to give me 3x squared minus 17x plus 20 equals 0. 3x squared minus 17x plus 20 equals 0. So I have to figure out the product. Let's see. The product, A times C, sum of B. What is A times C? 60. And what does it have to add up to? Negative 17. Let's see. I'll just start listing factors of 60. You tell me if you get a difference. Hang on, let me list them so everyone can see it. You tell me if you can find a difference of 17. 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10.
Negative 5, 12.
So negative 5 and 12. Negative 5 and negative 12. 2 negatives. What? Do you see that this is a negative 17? Yeah, that's right. A negative times a negative is a positive. So the factors that we're using are going to be negative 5 and negative 12. So I have to rewrite this. 3x squared minus 5x minus 12x plus 20 equals 0. I took this negative 17 and I broke it up into a negative 5 and a negative 12. Let's factor it by grouping. What can I take out of the first grouping? An x, that's it. Whoops. Divide it by an x. So I'm going to take my x out. I'm left with 3x minus 5. What can I take out of the second grouping? It's got to be a negative to get rid of that negative coefficient. Negative 4. I'm going to take out a negative 4. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is a positive 3. So that's my positive 3x. Positive 20 divided by negative 4 is my, dang it, negative 5. Do I have my repeated term, my copycat? I sure do. So I have 3x minus 5 times what's left over? X minus 4. Okay, so I'm going to slide up so we can see that. This is going to be the last one that I do. So that means that 3x minus 5 equals 0, which when I add 5 to both sides gives me 3x equals a positive 5, or x equals a positive 5/3. That's what that solves out to. Or x minus 4 equals 0, which means that x is positive 4. Those are your two solutions. Okay, those are your two solutions. So, homework. Page, the next 2 pages. However, I'm not going to be here tomorrow, right? You are going to do some more practice of this digitally tomorrow. But these 2 pages, if we number them, what are we at? You have a number now?
8, 9.
Are we on 8 and 9? Okay, so homework page 8 and page 9. And I need to go make copies of these really fast.
Can I get all 4 now?
Yes, write yourself a pass.
I literally don't care right now, bro. Oh, wow.
Nobody's here. Yeah, but how is it like just sitting out like that? She does not have anybody. Want one? I thought you were just like allowed to do that for some reason. No, she doesn't. You don't understand. It's the reason that she's on the side. Probably she don't think that, but then she Bro, I need to go to
Yeah, email me there and I'll get it right in there. Okay. I'm just going to put it in your Okay, give me a second.
It's only like $12.
Sorry. Will you come and grab these for me, please, sir? And Jack. Yeah. Give me a second. Jack, Jaden, will you give one of those to Jack for me?
They have a lot of awesome. I played it up.
Will you do me a favor and staple the rest of those? Put them together. Thank you.
I do that too. I need about 2 for I'll do like 2 gyms.